What if the most powerful place in the universe exists inside you? The secret place of the Most High is not a location on a map, nor a distant realm to be reached by the body. It is a state of consciousness, a quiet sanctuary within each of us, where the noise and distraction of the outer world fall away, and the soul finds rest in the ever-present divine. To enter this place, one must learn the art of stillness, not merely as a practice, but as a way of living. In stillness, the restless mind surrenders, and the heart begins to perceive the gentle presence that is always near. It is here, in this inner silence, that the voice of spirit speaks, not in words but in the certainty of knowing, the peace that surpasses understanding. When one abides in this secret place, life's challenges begin to lose their power. Fear, anxiety, and limitation are seen as shadows that vanish in the light of God's presence. It is not through struggle or striving that one finds authority over life's trials, but through the realization of oneness with the divine. In this sacred communion one discovers that all healing, all wholeness and all clarity already exist as a potential within, waiting to be revealed in the quiet surrender of the soul. The secret place is not merely for moments of prayer or meditation. It is a constant dwelling in consciousness that transforms every act, every thought, every encounter into a reflection of divine harmony. This is not an experience reserved for the extraordinary. Every individual has access to this inner sanctuary. It asks only for a willingness to step aside from the ceaseless demands of the external world, to let go of attachment to outcome, and to rest fully in the presence of what is eternal and unchanging. Here, the soul recognizes its true nature, not as a separate being struggling in limitation, but as an expression of infinite spirit, complete, whole, and free. In the secret place the illusions of fear and scarcity dissolve, and the soul awakens to the boundless reality of God. Entering the secret place is both an art and a science, cultivated through daily practice, through meditation, through the conscious choice to abide in spirit rather than circumstance. It is a place where all contradictions are resolved, where the heart and mind are harmonized in the knowledge that nothing exists outside of divine love. And yet, this sacred dwelling is ever present. It is never distant. It is the invisible sanctuary within that waits patiently, calling every seeker to rest, to listen, and to awaken to the fullness of life that can only be found in God. Here lies freedom, healing, and the eternal revelation that the kingdom of God is not something to attain, but something to recognize as already present within. To abide in the secret place is to live beyond fear, beyond struggle, beyond limitation. It is to discover that the divine life is not a goal to chase but a reality to be known. And in this knowing, all things are made new. The soul learns that it is never alone, never forsaken, and always upheld by the infinite presence of the Most High. This is the secret place, the hidden sanctuary where spirit and soul meet, where life is renewed, and where the eternal truth of God becomes living, breathing reality. Union with the divine is not an abstract concept or a distant aspiration. It is the very essence of our being waiting to be realized. It is the recognition that there is no separation between the human soul and the infinite spirit, that the life within us is not merely our own but a manifestation of the eternal presence of God. When one begins to perceive this union, life transforms from a series of challenges and struggles into a continuous experience of guidance, support, and inner peace. The divine is not somewhere there, to be sought through effort or achievement. It is already within, the ever-present reality that has been sustaining and surrounding us at every moment. To enter this union, the seeker must quiet the restless mind and let go of the mistaken belief in separation, allowing the awareness of oneness to emerge naturally and effortlessly. This union is not intellectual. It is not a matter of knowing or memorizing truths but of realizing an inner reality that can only be experienced. In moments of silence, in the stillness of meditation or contemplative prayer, the soul begins to perceive that it is inseparable from the divine, that every thought, feeling, and action is held in the infinite presence. It is here that the illusion of limitation begins to dissolve, for the soul no longer relies on human understanding or external circumstances to define its existence. The recognition of union with the divine brings with it a deep sense of security and freedom, a knowing that all needs are met and that the life of spirit flows unhindered through every aspect of our being. As one abides in this state, the external world continues its motions, yet it no longer disturbs the inner equilibrium. Joy, peace, and love are no longer dependent upon fleeting experiences or conditions but arise from the unshakable awareness of oneness. The soul experiences a profound harmony that transcends conflict, doubt, and fear, for it knows that it is not alone and that every circumstance is embraced by the infinite presence. In this realization, the seeker discovers the true purpose of life: to rest in God, to recognize the divine presence as the foundation of all being, and to live in the consciousness of unity that underlies every moment, every encounter, and every heartbeat. Union with the divine is the awakening to the truth that life is not something to be earned or achieved but something to be recognized, known, and lived, and in that recognition, all things are made whole. Inner silence is the doorway to the secret place of the Most High, the sanctuary where the soul meets the divine presence beyond all distraction. It is not merely the absence of sound or activity, but the deep stilling of the mind, the quieting of thoughts that endlessly chase one another. In the outer world, noise, obligations, and endless chatter often dominate, keeping the soul from resting in the awareness of God. Yet within, there is always a still point, an eternal silence where spirit communicates directly with the heart. To enter this silence requires a conscious turning inward, a letting go of the habitual reliance on reasoning, planning, and striving. It is an invitation to stop seeking outwardly and instead rest in the invisible presence that has always been sustaining life. This silence is not passive, it is alive with a subtle power. In it, the soul becomes receptive, no longer struggling against circumstances or attempting to control outcomes. In that quiet, the gentle voice of spirit can be heard, not as words but as guidance, understanding and peace that flows effortlessly. When one abides in this inner silence, the burdens of fear, doubt, and uncertainty begin to dissolve, for the mind no longer identifies with the transient chaos of the world. The deeper the silence, the more the soul experiences an unbroken awareness of the divine life within, a continuous communion that is independent of events, people, or external validation. Inner silence also reveals the truth that the soul is whole and complete, needing nothing outside of God to be fulfilled. In the quiet, one realizes that all healing, insight, and renewal emerge naturally from the presence of spirit. It is the fertile ground in which divine life can flourish, transforming thought, emotion, and action into reflections of harmony and love. Practicing silence is not about isolating oneself or escaping life, but about entering a place where life can be truly seen and understood from the perspective of spirit. In this stillness, the soul recognizes that it is not the mind that governs reality, but the infinite presence within, and from this recognition flows the freedom to act with wisdom, compassion, and inner assurance. Ultimately, inner silence is a continuous practice, a conscious choice to dwell in the unseen presence even as the outer world moves around us. It is the sacred threshold where the finite self surrenders to the infinite, where the soul learns to rest in God rather than struggle for understanding. In this silence, all things are revealed in their true light, and the heart awakens to the eternal truth that peace, guidance, and divine life are always present, ready to be known and embraced at every moment. Spiritual authority is not something that can be claimed, earned, or imposed through external power. It is discovered through the realization of one's inherent union with the divine presence. True authority arises from within, from the recognition that the life of God flows unbroken in every part of our being. When the soul abides in the awareness of spirit, it no longer looks to circumstances or external validation for strength, guidance, or influence. The power of the outer world is seen for what it is, temporary, limited, and incapable of altering the eternal life that already exists within. It is this recognition that gives rise to spiritual authority, a quiet confidence that no challenge, fear, or opposition can ultimately overcome. This authority is not exercised through control or domination over others. It is expressed through alignment with divine wisdom and the natural flow of life. From the inner place of oneness, decisions, words, and actions are informed not by ego or human ambition but by the infinite intelligence that permeates all creation. In this state, one discovers that the soul does not struggle to effect change, for change occurs spontaneously when the finite self steps aside and allows the divine presence to work through it. Obstacles lose their grip, and what once seemed impossible becomes attainable, not because of personal effort, but because of the conscious surrender to the infinite authority that governs all life. Spiritual authority also manifests as freedom from fear and limitation. When one realizes that life is sustained and guided by an unchanging presence, the mind and heart no longer react to the illusions of danger, scarcity, or inadequacy. The soul recognizes that it is always supported, always provided for, and therefore moves with a calm assurance that can influence circumstances without resistance or struggle. It is a power that is gentle yet unshakable, flowing from stillness rather than from exertion, from knowing rather than from proving. Moreover, spiritual authority transforms not only the individual but also the environment around them. The presence of one who abides in this inner reality brings peace, clarity, and confidence to those they encounter, reflecting the unseen order of spirit. The recognition of divine authority within becomes the guiding principle of life, shaping thought, behavior, and relationships in a manner that is harmonious, balanced, and aligned with higher truth. It is the authority that does not demand recognition but naturally asserts itself through presence, wisdom, and the quiet yet undeniable influence of spirit. In essence, spiritual authority is the natural expression of life lived in consciousness of God, a life that is free, empowered, and aligned with the eternal, immutable presence that governs all. It is discovered not by striving outwardly, but by resting inwardly, allowing the divine to direct, sustain, and manifest through the soul in every moment. Faith beyond form is the understanding that true spiritual power does not reside in outward ceremonies, rituals, or doctrines, but in the direct experience of the divine presence that transcends all form. It is the awareness that the essence of God cannot be contained by words, symbols, or external structures, for spirit is infinite and cannot be limited by human constructs. While religious practices can serve as a beginning, they are not the source of true faith. They are merely vehicles that can help the seeker turn inward. Real faith arises when one learns to rest in the invisible reality, to recognize that God is already present within, and that no external circumstance can alter or diminish this truth. This faith is not blind or passive, it is a living, conscious awareness of the unseen presence that permeates all life. It is an understanding that spirit is the only reality, and that all appearances of separation, limitation, or imperfection are temporary illusions. When the soul abides in this awareness, it no longer relies on external proofs or validations, for the certainty of God's presence is self-evident within. The seeker discovers that every challenge, every struggle, and every uncertainty can be met with calm assurance because the inner life of spirit sustains and guides without interruption. Faith beyond form allows one to move through life with confidence, knowing that the unseen power of God is always at work, even when the outer senses perceive limitation or disorder. In this state, the mind is liberated from the compulsion to control or manipulate circumstances, for it rests in the understanding that divine law operates perfectly and automatically. The soul experiences a deep freedom, a liberation from fear, doubt, and the anxiety of outcomes, because trust is placed not in temporal forms but in the eternal reality of God. Life itself becomes a spiritual laboratory, where every situation serves to reveal the presence and activity of spirit. Faith beyond form is both a practice and a state of consciousness, cultivated through meditation, contemplation, and the continuous surrender to the divine presence within. Ultimately, this faith reveals that God is not a distant authority to be appeased or a concept to be understood intellectually. It is a living, dynamic reality that can be experienced moment by moment, wherever one is in any circumstance. The soul learns that reliance on external forms is unnecessary, for the power of God is already present within, guiding, healing, and transforming all life. Faith beyond form is the awakening to the truth that the unseen is always more real than the seen, and that the life of spirit is the source of all strength, all guidance, and all peace. Healing and transformation are the natural fruits of abiding in the secret place of the Most High, for when the soul rests in the awareness of the divine presence, every limitation, fear, and sense of separation begins to dissolve. True healing is not simply the removal of symptoms or the correction of circumstances, it is the awakening to the wholeness and perfection that has always existed within. The mind must turn inward to recognize that spirit, which is infinite and unchanging, is the source of life, health, and harmony. When one consciously aligns with this presence, the body, mind, and emotions are renewed, not by human effort, but by the infinite power that flows effortlessly through the soul. Transformation arises as a natural consequence of this alignment, reshaping thought patterns, attitudes, and behaviors in harmony with divine life. This process begins in the stillness of the inner sanctuary, where the soul lets go of attachment to limitation and surrenders to the sustaining power of spirit. As the mind quiets and attention is centered in the presence of God, illusions of fear, disease, and inadequacy begin to vanish. Healing occurs first in consciousness, as the recognition of wholeness and perfection gradually replaces the belief in separation or weakness. This inner shift then manifests outwardly, bringing renewed vitality, clarity, and peace into every aspect of life. Transformation is not forced or manufactured, it is the spontaneous unfolding of the soul's true nature when it is allowed to dwell fully in spirit. Spiritual healing also transcends the temporary or superficial. It addresses not only the body but the emotional and mental states, restoring harmony to every level of being. The soul discovers that nothing is inherently broken, and that all seeming limitations are illusions waiting to be dissolved in the light of divine presence. This understanding releases a deep sense of freedom, for the seeker no longer relies on external remedies, circumstances, or validations. Instead, healing is recognized as the natural expression of life in God, the effortless outflow of infinite love and intelligence that sustains all creation. In this way, transformation is continuous, a gentle yet profound evolution of consciousness that aligns every thought, word, and action with the eternal reality of spirit. The soul learns that divine presence is not distant, but immediately available, and that every moment spent in awareness of this presence contributes to the renewal of life. Healing and transformation, therefore, are not occasional events but ongoing states of being, the natural outcome of resting, abiding, and recognizing the all-encompassing perfection of God within. Continuous practice is the bridge that sustains the soul's connection to the secret place of the Most High, for the awareness of divine presence is not a fleeting experience but a state to be cultivated and deepened over time. It is not enough to enter the secret place occasionally or in moments of crisis. True spiritual life unfolds when the soul consistently returns to the inner sanctuary, allowing the awareness of God to shape every thought, feeling, and action. This practice is not mechanical or ritualistic, it is a conscious choice to abide in spirit, a willingness to place attention on the unseen reality that underlies all life. Through daily devotion to inner stillness, meditation, and mindful surrender, the soul gradually learns to dwell in a constant state of communion with the divine, recognizing that every moment is an opportunity to deepen this relationship. The essence of continuous practice is consistency and awareness rather than quantity of time spent. Even brief moments of conscious turning inward carry profound significance when repeated faithfully. The mind, which naturally drifts toward distraction and worldly concerns, is gradually trained to rest in the presence of spirit, and the heart becomes increasingly receptive to guidance, peace, and illumination. Each return to this inner place strengthens the connection, reinforcing the understanding that divine presence is always near, always sustaining, and always available. In this way, spiritual practice becomes not an obligation but a natural rhythm of life, an unfolding of trust in the infinite source of wisdom and life within. Through continuous practice, the seeker discovers that the secret place is not separate from daily living. Every action, conversation, and experience becomes an extension of the inner communion, for the awareness of God is carried into every aspect of life. Challenges and obstacles are met with calm assurance, and the soul learns to act from presence rather than reaction. Healing, clarity, and spiritual authority flow more readily, not because of striving or effort, but because the consciousness is firmly established in the recognition of oneness with the divine. The repeated practice of entering and abiding in this sacred space allows the soul to internalize these truths, making them living realities rather than abstract concepts. Ultimately, continuous practice is the path to mastery of the inner life. It is a lifelong journey of returning, resting, and abiding in the unseen presence that underlies all experience. The soul comes to realize that the secret place is not a distant goal to attain, but an ever-present reality to inhabit. Through faithful, consistent practice, the inner sanctuary becomes not a momentary retreat but a permanent dwelling, where divine life is fully recognized, experienced, and expressed in every moment, shaping the entirety of existence with wisdom, peace, and divine harmony. In conclusion, the secret place of the Most High is not a distant or hidden realm but the eternal sanctuary within each soul, always present, always inviting. It is here that the seeker discovers the reality of union with the divine, where stillness and silence reveal the truth of oneness and the limitless presence of God. In this sacred space, spiritual authority is recognized as the natural outflow of abiding in spirit, and faith beyond form awakens the soul to the invisible power that transcends all outward appearances. Healing and transformation occur effortlessly as the soul rests in the eternal life within, and through continuous practice, this inner communion becomes the very rhythm of existence, a living experience rather than a fleeting moment. To dwell in this secret place is to live beyond fear, limitation, and the illusions of separation. It is to awaken to the fullness of life that is already present, to the perfect wholeness that has never been absent. Each return to the inner sanctuary strengthens the consciousness of spirit, deepens understanding, and reveals that the life of God is not something to chase but something to know and abide in. Here the soul finds rest, guidance, renewal, and a profound inner freedom that shapes every thought, word, and action. Ultimately, the secret place is the realization that life itself is sacred, that every moment is an opportunity to experience the unchanging presence of God, and that the eternal sanctuary of spirit is always accessible to those who seek it with sincerity and devotion. To enter this place is to awaken to the truth of who we are, to live in harmony with the divine, and to carry the light of spirit into the world. It is the hidden treasure, the inner life, and the eternal refuge where all things are made whole, and where the soul, resting in the Most High, knows the profound peace, joy, and freedom that can only come from abiding in God.